Hello, I'm Alma Angeles and you're watching Eagle News International.
And I'm CJ Hero. Welcome to the program. On tonight's headlines.
U.S. President Joe Biden is expected to detail how his administration will tackle the coronavirus as he starts his first full day in the White House with America facing multiple crises.
In a dramatic about turn, the new U.S. administration thanks the World Health Organization for leading the global pandemic response and vows to remain a member, according to Anthony Fauci, President Joe Biden's chief medical advisor. His comments mark a clear departure from the harsh criticism dealt to the WHO by former U.S. President Donald Trump, who had begun withdrawing his country from the organization.
Transmitted.
Chinese rescuers drilled deep into the ground in an increasingly desperate bid to save 21 miners, now trapped for almost 2 weeks, with one confirmed dead and still no signs of life from over half of the missing workers. First, Joe Biden took charge as the 46th President of the United States with an upbeat goal to heal a nation torn by deep schisms as he immediately erased some of former President Donald Trump's most decisive policies. Standing on the Capitol, Biden swore the presidential oath on a bulging century-old family Bible. Joe Biden's inauguration offered the American capital city a rare occasion for glamour, with Lady Gaga belting out a classic rendition of the U.S. national anthem. And following Gaga's performance of the Star-Spangled Banner, Jennifer Lopez took the stage performing Woody Guthrie's classic This Land Is Yours, a tune with a socialist bent that a folk legend is said to have written in response to the more nationalistic God Bless America. Let's listen in.
So proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
Office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability.
Will, to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Islands, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me.
In this place, let's start afresh. All of us. Let's begin to listen to one another again. Hear one another. See one another. Show respect to one another. Politics doesn't have to be a raging fire, destroying everything in its path. Every disagreement doesn't have to be a cause for total war. And we must reject the culture in which facts themselves are manipulated. I will be a president for all Americans, all Americans. The people, the will of the people has been heard, and the will of the people has been heeded. We've learned again that democracy is precious, democracy is fragile. And at this hour, my friends, democracy has prevailed.
Two weeks after a mob attacked the U.S. Capitol, the mood has shifted from fearful to celebratory as spectators in Washington listened to Joe Biden's speech appealing for unity and healing during his inauguration address as the 46th President of the United States. We have Eliza Gonzalez Manglikmot from our Washington, D.C. Bureau who was at the scene. Watch this.
President Joe Biden has just taken oath, and oath-taking was administered by Chief Justice U.S. John Roberts. And in his speech, the 46th President of the United States mentioned that today is America's Day. It is democracy's day. It is a day of renewal and resolve. President Biden said it is time to celebrate the triumph of democracy's cause because democracy has prevailed. He also made mention of the violence that happened in the Capitol 2 weeks ago. He said while some sought to shake democracy by violating the U.S. Capitol, he said we were able to carry out a peaceful transfer of power and that we have seen the resilience of the Constitution. He said we have the country has come far, but there's so much more to do. And he also mentioned the impact of the coronavirus and the cry for racial justice, but he said the United States won't be deferred. And he also said it is time to confront and defeat extremism and white supremacy. And as expected, he appealed for what he calls the elusive of all things in democracy, and that is unity. He said with unity, the country can right wrongs, can defeat racism, demonism and extremism. And he said what we need to achieve unity is history, faith, and reason. And also without it, there's no peace and there's no nation. He called for the nation to start afresh by listening, seeing, and respecting one another. Now, earlier today, going here to the Capitol, to the U.S. Capitol, we have seen, like what we've mentioned, layers and layers of security, very, very tight security around the nation's capital because of anticipation of protests. But today, many people are hoping that after this unifying message by the president, everything will ease into a better state in the whole country. We had a chance to speak with a Washington resident who shared with us how upset she was 2 weeks ago during the event at the Capitol, but today is very hopeful to echo the president's message of unity. Take a look.
And I think Joe Biden is delivering the right message that, you know, we're going to move forward together. Yeah. I feel good.
He called for healing too. How long do you think this will take after what you've seen in the past 4 years?
Yeah, it's gonna take time. You know, I just think at least we have a commitment to coming together, and I didn't feel that last time around in 2017. So I'm hopeful. Well, I was very scared 2 weeks ago. We live less than a mile from here, so I was a little worried. Just you have that much energy, you know, pumped up, and then I just wasn't sure where it was going to go following, you know, that evening. But then walking around the last 2 weeks, I feel like, okay, we learned our lesson. Let's get reinforcements and prepare. So now it feels good. I don't know. I feel better. I don't know. I mean, I would just echo what I just heard Joe Biden say. I'm just so filled with hope. Yeah, I'm really feeling good today. Yeah.
We also got a chance to speak with someone who flew in all the way from California with her kids to be part of history. She said, as a woman and as one belonging to a minority in the U.S., she said she is here to celebrate what America is now. Ciela, we heard you're from California. What brought you all the way here for this event?
I believe it's a moment for unity as a country, and being that I am a woman of a minority, it's very important that I came here because the last 4 years I felt highly discriminated by the person that lived in the White House.
Graciela, you mentioned that you're a woman of minority. Today, we made history. Vice President Kamala Harris, the first female, the first African American, as the vice president. What's your thoughts about that?
It's so special, but what makes it more special is that she was my senator from California, and being able to attend it here with my nieces and my daughter and teaching them that we could break glass ceilings. We have to have hope and never give up. I think that's the most important thing. If I could teach my kids something, it would be to be resilient and don't give up hope ever.
We asked about the siege on the Capitol.
It was heartbreaking, but that was not America. This is America, united, coming together. There's no colors, there's no languages. We're just united as American. And for the last 4 years, in order to be American, you had to be blonde with blue eyes. But America's a melting pot. You can never say what an American looks like because we come in different colors and different sizes. We are like ice cream flavors, all kinds of them.
We also asked how long she thinks the healing will take.
I think it's going to take a process. We can't just expect us to be united tomorrow, but we have to take that responsibility. Love our friends, love thy neighbors like we love ourselves. And I have Republican friends. I'm a diehard Democrat, but I love my Republican friends. And I always focus on what I could do, not what other people could do and what is under my control. And I believe that it's up to every American citizen to bring unity back into this country.
And while this group of people here behind me were listening to the president's speech, some were moved to tears, some were clapping, jumping, celebrating for what they call a new hope. We are only a few blocks from the U.S. Capitol where everything is happening, but in this part of the nation's capital, you could feel a celebratory mood that this group of people behind me are all sharing. In Washington, Eliza Gonzalez, Manglikmot, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
I will give my all to you, U.S. President Joe Biden said in a primetime television broadcast from the Lincoln Memorial as he reiterated a call for unity after being sworn in as the 46th President of the United States. Let's take a look.
We've learned again that democracy is precious. Because of you, democracy has prevailed. That's why Jill and I, Kamala and Doug, wanted to make sure our inauguration was not about us, but about you, the American people. This is a great nation. We're a good people. And to overcome the challenges in front of us requires the most elusive of all things in a democracy, unity. America's story depends not on any one of us, not on some of us, but on all of us, on we the people. That's the task before us. The only way we'll get through the darkness around us, we are in one of those moments now. The pandemic, economic crisis, racial injustice, the climate crisis, and threats to our very democracy. And the question is, are we up to it? Will we meet the moment like our forebears have? I believe we must, and I believe we will. America built of decency. It's built of decency and dignity, of love and healing, of greatness and goodness, of possibilities. This is a story that guides us, inspires us, and unites us today and always. So thank you for this honor. I will give my all to you.
We shoot for the moon, and then we plant our flag on it. We are bold, fearless, and ambitious. We are undaunted in our belief that we shall overcome, that we will rise up.
Fireworks lit up the sky over Washington, D.C. as Joe Biden's Inauguration Day comes to a close. Joe Biden took charge as the 46th president of the U.S. with an upbeat call to heal the nation torn by deep schisms as he immediately erased some of Donald Trump's most divisive policies. At 78, Biden is the oldest ever U.S. president, a job he first sought in 1987. Harris, the daughter of Indian and Jamaican immigrants, became the highest-ranking woman in U.S. history and the first black person and first person of Asian heritage as the nation's number 2.
U.S. President Joe Biden signed a series of executive orders to launch his administration Wednesday, including a decision to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord and a mask mandate for all federal buildings. The orders included keeping the United States in the World Health Organization, ending the ban on entries from mostly Muslim-majority countries, bolstering environmental protections, and strengthening the fight against COVID-19. Watch this.
Is the commitment I made that we're going to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord as of today.
Mr. President.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
This is the first one I'm signing. Some of the executive actions I'm going to be signing today are going to help change the course of the COVID crisis, and we're going to combat climate change in a way that we haven't done so far, and advance racial equity and support other underserved communities. We're going to rebuild our economy as well.
In a dramatic about turn, the new U.S. administration thanked the World Health Organization for leading the global pandemic response and vows to remain a member. According to Anthony Fauci, President Joe Biden's chief medical advisor, his comments mark a clear departure from the harsh criticism dealt to the WHO by former U.S. President Trump, who had begun withdrawing his country from the organization. Let's listen in.
Of our relationship with WHO, I am honored to announce that the United States will remain a member of the World Health Organization. Yesterday, President Biden signed letters retracting the previous administration's announcement to withdraw from the organization. And those letters have been transmitted to the Secretary General of the United Nations and to you, Dr. Tedros, my dear friend. I join my fellow representatives in thanking the World Health Organization for its role in leading the global public health response to this pandemic. The United States also intends to fulfill its financial obligations to the organization. The United States sees technical collaboration at all levels as a fundamental part of our relationship with WHO. I am also pleased to announce today that the United States plans to work multilaterally to respond to and recover from the COVID-19 pandemic.
President Joe Biden said Wednesday that outgoing President Donald Trump had left him a very generous letter in the Oval Office in keeping with tradition. Watch this.
The President wrote a very generous letter. It's because it was private. I will not talk about it until I talk to him, but it was generous.
It was unclear until Wednesday whether Trump would maintain the tradition of outgoing presidents leaving notes for their successors after he opted to skip Biden's inauguration and never formally congratulated him on his election win. While the contents of the letter are unknown, CNN reported that it was written on Tuesday night and was a personal note that included prayers for the Biden administration and the U.S. as a nation, citing a Trump administration source.
First, an update. A magnitude 7.1 earthquake hit the waters of Jose Abad Santos town in Davao Occidental. Strong intensities felt in some parts of Mindanao tonight. The tremor struck 231 kilometers southeast of Jose Abad Santos at 8:23 p.m., according to PHIVOX. Intensity 5, considered by PHIVOX as strong, was felt in General Santos City. Intensity 4, or moderately strong, was recorded in Davao City, while the tremor was slightly felt in Bisig, Surigao del Sur. Other areas in Mindanao and Eastern Samar had instrumental intensities, or those that were recorded by instruments but may not have been felt. And we'll give you more updates as we follow this developing story. Meanwhile, President Joe Biden's first call to a foreign leader will be to Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. White House spokeswoman Jen Psaki said Wednesday, with the fate of the controversial Keystone XL pipeline on the agenda. Take a look.
So his first foreign leader call will be on Friday with Prime Minister Trudeau. I expect they will certainly discuss the important relationship with Canada, as well as his decision on the Keystone pipeline that we announced today. I don't have any plans or any plans to read out for you in terms of a call with President Putin. I will note for you that I would expect his early calls will be with partners and allies. He feels it's important to rebuild those relationships and to address the challenges and threats we're facing in the world.
President Joe Biden plans to scrap the permit for the controversial Keystone XL oil pipeline between Canada and the U.S. CBC and CTV cited sources and notes from Biden's transition team that indicate he will rescind the permit via executive order following his inauguration. The $8 billion pipeline extension would transport about 500,000 barrels of oil per day from Canada's tar sands in Alberta to refineries in coastal Texas. Owned by TC Energy and the government of Alberta, the extension was blocked in 2008 by then-President Barack Obama due to environmental concerns. His successor, Donald Trump, moved to authorize it. And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
This portion is brought to you by Canriv Corporation, your ventilation and air conditioning specialist. Services offered: supply and installation of elevators, escalators, air conditioners, ventilators, jet towel, hand dryers, generators, access control system, factory automation, and modernization. For more info, please contact Ami Kanke at 0915-263-7198 or 0998-900-3224.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Welcome back to the news. As Joe Biden takes his oath of office as the 46th U.S. president, the business of government itself resumes in some parts of the country. And despite the prevailing uncertainties for potential unrest and violence, a Filipino-American lawmaker pledges to fulfill her duties as Hawaii's legislature opens its 2021 session on the same day as the inauguration. Hawaii correspondent Alfred Senes has more.
It's the night before the opening of the 31st Hawaii legislative session. I'm home, and it's my first session tomorrow as an elected official, so I felt it was important to touch bases with you.
State Senator Bennett Misalucha describes the festive atmosphere that used to be commonplace in and around the Hawaii state capital before the COVID-19 pandemic.
In prior years, the opening day at the Capitol was such a wonderful tradition where food flowed and everyone was embraced with aloha. Because of COVID, we are skipping the ceremonies and paring it down to basics and simple. But we are excited to work with the other legislators, the other senators, to enact bills that would make a difference in all of our lives, in our district. Bills that would hopefully allow us to set the stage for our state's recovery from this pandemic.
The former community leader and business executive acknowledges the risks of discharging her office at a time when COVID-19 cases continue to rise and protests could ignite anywhere at any time in the Aloha State.
I want to thank those of you who reached out and expressed your aloha as well as concern about my safety at the Capitol in view of recent events in Washington, D.C. Do know that I feel confident that all the necessary precautions have been put in place by the relevant authorities involved. We are not taking any threats lightly. However, we need to demonstrate that we, the legislature as an institution, stand strong and the business of the people will go on. We will not cower in fear. As you may have heard, there will be some changes in the way this session will proceed. The Capitol will still be on lockdown due to COVID, but we will have floor sessions in person. However, all the hearings will be virtual. But be assured that democracy will prevail and you, as a citizen, can continue to engage and provide insights into the bills that will be introduced this year.
So the state capitol is still closed to the public until further notice. However, their proceedings will be available live on YouTube. Just type in Hawaii Senate. Reporting from Honolulu, Hawaii, I'm Alfred Senes, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you.
Meanwhile, in Oakland, people celebrated the new leadership, expressed that they're proud of California-born and raised and first woman Vice President Kamala Harris. Here's Angel Membrere for the report.
An emotional day for many, as today will be remembered in history. The inauguration of President Joe Biden and the first woman Vice President, Kamala Harris. Vice President Harris was born and raised here in Northern California, now represents this state in the White House. She was born in Oakland, California, and started her career in Alameda County. Libby Schaaf, the 50th mayor of the city of Oakland, shared her sentiments through Twitter back on November 7th, saying yes to decency and compassion. Yes to new leadership that elevates our values of diversity and inclusion. Today, Mayor Schaaf tweeted, "Congrats to my friend Kamala Harris. Oakland is proud beyond words. First Black woman and Asian woman VP, daughter of immigrants and daughter of Oakland. You make us proud to be American again." The city of Oakland is proud, to say the least. Yesterday, they raised a new flag, the Scranton Oakland Unity flag. It is a visual of two hands reaching out toward each other with the words Oakland and Scranton, referencing the hometowns of Vice President Kamala Harris and President Joe Biden. Mayor Libby Schaaf was joined by her family as they celebrated the inauguration from their home in Oakland. She proudly hung 2 flags outside of her house, including the Oakland-Scranton Unity flag. And if you look closely at the very end of the clip, Mayor Libby Schaaf places a hand over her chest, pledging allegiance to the American flag. As history has shown us, many memorable messages and quotes are shared during these inauguration speeches, and today was no different. President Joe Biden said, "Here we stand, where 108 years ago at another inaugural, thousands of protesters tried to block brave women marching for the right to vote. And today, we mark the first women in American history elected to national office, Vice President Kamala Harris. Don't tell me things can't change." In Sacramento, California, Angel Membrari, Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
New U.S. President Joe Biden warned the worst of the pandemic is still to come as the number of American coronavirus deaths surpassed the country's troop fatalities in the World War II. Coronavirus cases have surged past 96 million worldwide, fueled by the emergence of new variants, including one that was first detected in Britain and has now spread to more than 60 nations, the World Health Organization said Wednesday. The United States remains the worst-hit country with around a fifth of the 2 million global COVID-19 deaths, and Biden has made the fight against the pandemic his administration's top priority. A Johns Hopkins University tracker on Wednesday showed that 405,400 people have died from the disease, more than the 405,399 total U.S. combat and non-combat deaths in World War II. Among the Biden administration's targets is to inoculate 100 million Americans in 100 days, hoping to revive a vaccine rollout that had floundered in the last weeks of the Trump presidency.
U.S. President Donald Trump left Washington just 3 hours ahead of the inauguration of his successor, Joe Biden, saying it has been an incredible 4 years. Let's take a look.
With that, I just want to say you are amazing people. This is a great, great country. It is my greatest honor and privilege to have been your president. And we had a lot of obstacles, and we went through the obstacles, and we just got 75 million votes, and that's a record in the history of sitting presidents. That's an all-time record by a lot, by many millions in the history of sitting presidents. It's been really just an honor. I hope they don't raise your taxes. But if they do, I told you so.
President Trump arrived Wednesday at his resort home in Mar-a-Lago, Florida, after leaving the White House for the last time. As Joe Biden's inauguration ceremony was underway in Washington, an event Trump snubbed, he flew to Palm Beach aboard Air Force One and then traveled in a motorcade to his home. Hundreds of fans lined the road waving Trump campaign flags, U.S. flags, and one that had an insulting word for Biden. The 74-year-old Trump has hinted at running for president again in 2024, but faces a trial in the Senate over his role in the January 6th storming of the U.S. Capitol by his supporters and a potential ban on holding office in the future.
In other news, China congratulated President Joe Biden on his inauguration and called for a reset in relations between Beijing and Washington as the new administration brought an end to the fractious term of Donald Trump. Beijing also said it welcomed news that the U.S. would rejoin the World Health Organization and the Paris Climate Accord as Biden tried to immediately pivot his office back to a key role in global leadership. The new U.S. president is expected to remain tough on China but commit to international cooperation after Trump's divisive America First approach. Let's listen in.
要下定决心，一切都有可能。 我相信，在双方的共同努力下，中美关系中的善良的天使能够战胜邪恶的力量。过去几年中，特朗普政府，特别是蓬佩奥，在中美关系当中埋了太多的雷，需要排除；烧了太多的桥，需要重建；毁了太多的路，需要修复。我想，中美双方呢都需要拿出勇气，展现智慧，彼此倾听、正视和相互尊重。我想，这是中美两个大国应有的担当，也是国际社会的期待。
She said Biden had used the word unity several times in his inauguration speech and that it was precisely what is needed currently in the U.S.-China relations. Under Trump, tensions with China plunged to a nadir over trade, security, technology, the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic, and human rights. In a final dig at the Trump administration, Beijing said Wednesday it was sanctioning more than 24 members and ex-officials in the former president's government, including his Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. The officials and their family members will be prohibited from entering mainland China, Hong Kong, and Macau, the foreign ministry said.
There were still signs of tension on the horizon, however, as it emerged that a representative of the self-ruled island of Taiwan was formally invited to the U.S. inauguration for the first time since 1979. Beijing balks at any official contacts with Taiwan and tries to keep the island diplomatically isolated. Take a look.
中国坚决反对任何形式的美台官方往来，这一立场是一贯和明确的。我们敦促美方切实地恪守一个中国原则和中美3个联合公报规定，慎重妥善处理涉台问题，以免损害中美关系和台海和平稳定。那么，中国驻美使馆也收到了出席拜登总统的就职典礼的邀请，中方呢已经向拜登总统表示了祝贺。
Xiao Bi Kim, Taipei's envoy, posted a video of herself at Wednesday's inauguration saying she was honored to represent the people and government of Taiwan at the inauguration of President Biden and Vice President Harris. Washington recognized Beijing over Taipei during the administration of President Jimmy Carter, but the U.S. remains Democratic Taiwan's most important unofficial ally and is bound by an act of Congress to sell the island weapons to defend itself. Protecting the island from a Chinese invasion became one of the few issues to receive broad bipartisan support during the polarized Trump years. And politicians on both sides of the aisle have called on Biden to be more proactive in maintaining Taiwan's freedoms. The Biden administration is also expected to keep the pressure on China over trade and human rights after Trump launched a bruising trade war that imposed billions of dollars in tariffs on Chinese goods.
In other news, Twitter said it has locked the account of the Chinese embassy in the U.S. over a tweet claiming Uyghur women were no longer baby-making machines after their minds had been emancipated. A Twitter spokesperson told AFP it took action against the tweet for violating our policy against dehumanization. More than 1 million Uyghurs and other mostly Muslim minorities are believed to be held in re-education camps in the country's northwestern Xinjiang region, where China is also accused of forcibly sterilizing women. China denies the accusations and says the facilities in the region are not camps, but job training centers to steer people away from terrorism. On Thursday, China's foreign ministry said it did not understand Twitter's decision to impose the restrictive measures, saying China was a major victim of fake and ugly information in relation to the Xinjiang issue.
Back to the U.S., crowds of people across Portland turned violent on Inauguration Day, smashing windows at the Democratic Party of Oregon building and later targeting the Immigrations and Customs Enforcement facility where federal officers declared an unlawful assembly. On Wednesday night, a crowd of at least 100 gathered in South Portland's Elizabeth Carruthers Park with plans to march to a nearby Immigrations and Customs Enforcement Facility or ICE. Around 9 p.m., Boston Live reported that the crowd began to move, chanting slogans protesting the U.S. detention and caging of migrant children. Protesters also decried Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler and President Joe Biden and chanted "Abolish ICE." Upon reaching the building, several people spray-painted "Reunite Families Now" onto the wall of the ICE building. Federal officers used tear gas and munitions several times. Earlier in the day, a crowd gathered at Southeast Portland's Revolution Hall on Wednesday for 120, an event decrying the government, including Biden's presidency, and focused on various cries for justice, including reforming policing and improving education and foster care.
In other news, India and Canada have expressed interest to collaborate with the Philippines in their vaccine trials, an official from the Department of Science and Technology said. DOST Philippine Council for Health, Research and Development Executive Director Jaime Montoya said the two countries sent separate proposals coming from the University of Saskatchewan in Canada and from Bharat Biotech in India that are developing the vaccines for use in the trials. Montoya said both countries are possible partners of the Philippines. DOST Secretary Fortunato de la Peña said the two countries' interest to collaborate would provide the Philippines with more options of vaccines that can be made available in the country.
A billionaire Thai opposition figure accused of defaming the country's monarchy has vowed to keep campaigning for reform despite facing what he dubbed a politically motivated lawsuit. Take a look.
Time is of essence. Time is very important. Say, if we're talking about 6-month delays, we are talking how many people who have to bear this burden, how many companies will go bankrupt, how many families have to suffer another 6 months. This company receive public money. Cross the name of the shareholder of this company. Should this company be scrutinized by public? Should it be? I think it should. I think somebody should scrutinize the setup if it benefits this company overly. The information, this information, the public should know, and it's worth the risk. So it's kind of trade-off. I believe that the public should know this information, even if I'm charged with the lèse majesty law. The idea of monarchy reform is the idea whose time has come. You cannot stop it. You can prolong it, but you cannot stop it. It's the wind of change. You cannot stop it.
Mr. Tanatorn, founder of the now dissolved Future Forward Party, is facing legal action over a video he posted on Monday criticizing the government's vaccine strategy. He raised questions about whether Thailand's vaccination campaign is too reliant on Siam Bioscience, which is owned by the Crown Property Bureau, a body that manages the royal family's multi-billion-dollar fortune. Thailand has ordered 61 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine, and Siam Bioscience plans to manufacture 200 million doses of that vaccine for the kingdom and wider region each year. The video drew the ire of Thailand's Ministry of Digital Economy and Society, which on Wednesday filed a royal defamation complaint against him.
In other news, Mongolia's prime minister resigned Thursday following protests and public outrage over the treatment of a coronavirus patient and her newborn baby. Anger mounted this week after TV footage showed a woman who appeared to have recently given birth being moved to an infectious disease center wearing only hospital pajamas and plastic slippers despite temperatures dipping to negative 25 degrees Celsius. After protests outside government buildings on Wednesday, Prime Minister Kurel Suka Kukna apologized on behalf of the government and said he would stand down immediately. The video of the woman in an ambulance clutching her baby prompted fierce criticism, particularly as Mongolian tradition dictates new mothers should avoid the cold weather and cold food for the first month after birth. Landlocked Mongolia reported just a handful of COVID-19 cases last year after imposing strict border controls. But in November, its first domestic transmissions caused a new wave of lockdowns and restrictions.
In other news, Chinese rescuers drilled deep into the ground on Thursday in an increasingly desperate bid to save the 21 miners now trapped for almost 2 weeks. With one confirmed dead and still no signs of life from over half of the missing workers, according to state media, 22 workers were entombed hundreds of meters underground at the Hushan mine near Qisha City in East China's Shandong province after a January 10 explosion sealed the entrance and cut off communications. Contact has been established with one group of miners, although one seriously injured in the initial explosion was confirmed dead late on Wednesday. Another is believed to be trapped on his own 100 meters further down in rising waters, but his condition is unknown as he has not been directly reached by the rescue teams above. The second group of 11 miners have also yet to be contacted despite rescuers' efforts. Rescuers made contact on Sunday with the first group of 11 miners at a site around 580 meters below the surface. The workers said they were trapped by 2 underground explosions in the mine, but details are still being confirmed. Emergency responders have drilled 2 lifeline channels to deliver food and medicine and installed a telephone line. They're also trying to widen a shaft about the size of a manhole cover to eventually allow the miners to be extracted, according to CCTV. But the broadcaster said Thursday it understood this would take another 15 days or possibly longer. The progress of the rescue has been slow because they're drilling through granite, while the extraction could be further complicated by the waterlogged state of the mine.
In other news, a rare twin suicide bombing killed at least 13 people on a bustling commercial street in the heart of Baghdad on Thursday, the military said, rupturing months of relative calm. Iraq's Joint Operations Command said another 19 people were also wounded, calling it a preliminary toll. Medical sources told AFP they feared the death toll could be twice as high as officially announced. Military spokesman Yahya Rasool said 2 suicide bombers detonated their explosives as they were being pursued by security forces. After years of deadly sectarian violence, suicide bombings have become relatively rare in the capital. The last such attack took place in June 2019 and left several people dead. Thursday's twin attack was not immediately claimed, but suicide bombings have been used by ultra-conservative Islamist groups, most recently the Islamic State organization. Iraq declared ISIS defeated at the end of 2017 after a fierce 3-year campaign to retake the 1/3 of the country that had been seized by the jihadists. But the group's sleeper cells have continued to operate in desert and mountain areas, typically targeting security forces or state infrastructure with low casualty attacks. Still, the U.S.-led coalition that had been supporting Iraq's campaign against ISIS has significantly drawn down its troop levels over the past year, citing the increased capabilities of Iraqi troops. The United States, which provides the bulk of the force, has 2,500 troops left in Iraq, down from 5,200 a year ago. They are mainly in charge of training, providing drone surveillance, and carrying out airstrikes, while Iraqi security forces handle security in urban areas. Eagle News will be right back. Don't go away.
This portion is brought to you by Kubert, an expert in air conditioning and electromechanical, also engaged in structural, electrical, fire protection, plumbing, and sanitary services. Kubert, your ultimate MEPS air conditioning solutions.
Hey there, Arnie Aquino here at Hatley Castle, one of the filming locations for the X-Men series. Don't forget to tune in to Digital Nest only on Net25.
In NBA action, Colin Sexton scored a game-high 42 points as the Cleveland Cavaliers overcame a James Harden triple-double and spoiled the debut of the Brooklyn Nets' Big Three with a 147-135 double overtime victory. Wednesday's marathon contest was supposed to showcase the Nets star trio of Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving playing together for the first time. Now, Irving finished with 37 points. Harden had a triple-double of 21 points, 10 rebounds, and 12 assists. And Durant tallied a team-high 38 points and 12 rebounds. But it wasn't enough as the Cavaliers had 7 players in double-figure scoring at the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse Arena in Cleveland. Turkey's Seti Osman scored 25 points, and Taurean Prince came off the bench to notch 17 as the Cavaliers' bench outscored the Nets' reserves 44-10.
Meanwhile, Memphis NBA game at the Portland Trail Blazers scheduled for Wednesday has been postponed with the Grizzlies depleted by coronavirus contact tracing, according to the league. The league also postponed Friday's Washington Wizards-Milwaukee Bucks game because of similar COVID-19 health and safety rules. The 16th and 17th such postponements of the season came on the day the league announced that of 502 players tested for COVID-19 since January 13, 11 new players had returned a confirmed positive test. The league's coronavirus protocols require anyone who tests positive or who is identified as coming in close contact with an infected person to isolate or quarantine. Contact tracing left the Grizzlies without the league-required 8 players available for their scheduled game at Portland. The Grizzlies had announced Sunday that Jonas Valanciunas was sidelined after entering the league's COVID-19 health and safety protocols. He missed a Memphis victory over the Phoenix Suns on Monday. Wednesday's game between the Washington Wizards and Charlotte Hornets had been postponed as well. The Wizards will miss a 6th straight game on Friday as they remained unable to put 8 players in uniform. We're hoping for everyone's fast recovery.
Yes.
That's it for tonight's broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I am CJ Hero. We'll see you again tomorrow.
See you back tomorrow. At the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.